Alrighty, good morning, everybody. It is April 16th of 2025. It's Wednesday, and we are still chopping inside of this super tight range. Here's our hourly chart. And for the last 2 days, let's scroll back to yesterday. This is how yesterday played out in this little tight chop box. This is how the day before that played out, right? This is the day we were looking at. If anyone was here yesterday, this was the day we were looking at as we came into the open. So two very, very tight ranges. And no way to predict that yesterday was going to continue to be a tight range market, but that's what happened there. And now you can see as we come into the open, they have traveled lower. And it's kind of interesting to note that yesterday, just before the market opened, or right around when it opened, I told you guys, we actually have a daily bearish signal up from the high of the day before, and we have a bearish signal from the high of last week. We also had a 4-hour bearish signal from the high of last week, and as we were coming into the open, we were making lower highs. So we did have a little bit of a clue for the bears yesterday from the highs. So if you look at what happened here yesterday, the market opened and it came right to the roadmap level. The high of the day was our roadmap level, basically to the tick. And then we sold off. And now as we come into the open, we're now at lower lows compared to the last 2 days. So again, this is how we start to predict rotations in the market. Now, whether or not this is going to continue to go in the direction of this pullback is the question, because we did come down in the overnight session and we did hold the next roadmap level down here and they bounced. Interestingly enough, or maybe not because it's just so common, they did come right back up and hold this roadmap level in the overnight session, and they are now pulling back again, going in the direction, like I said, of this potential pullback we were anticipating before the market opened yesterday. So we'll see what happens here, but let's go ahead and jump back to yesterday. And we'll look at some of the details. I did get in long here, and it unfortunately didn't go very far. Just got a scalp, but 76 to almost 81, a 5-point push, or just under a 5-point push. If you actually got long from this roadmap level at 76, then you just missed by a tick or two that 5-point push. But again, this is, well, I know that we've got some new members in now that don't, or not members, but new eyes on this system. But this is exactly why we look at VWAP and we look at our fast moving average and our slow moving average. If we're going to continue to be in a bearish trend here, which by the way, I was hoping we could get a small rotation to come back up into this range and get a bigger trade, but it didn't happen, right? But when we're looking at something like a bearish market, typically if we're going to hold a level for the bullish bounce, we're going to find some type of resistance around VWAP, the fast moving average, or that slower moving average, or obviously the next major roadmap level. So this bounce and this rejection from VWAP is exactly why I had a contract sitting right in front of it. So that's, this is part of reading the market. This is why I consider the 3 short time frame moving averages, the roadmap levels that we use, being basically where the market is going to kind of meander back and forth inside of. And that's why you get, I call this a roadmap. It's like the price is making a high off the major roadmap level up here. It's selling off. It's holding that test of the 200. There's the bounce from the moving average. It even on the way down here, when we sold off last night or in the middle of the night here, they held that first roadmap level. It still came right to it. It still bounced and bounced 9 points, right? So the low 5,400, the low of that 5,400, and it went all the way to 5409.75. So still almost a 10-point bounce to the tick. It bounced. Right, so, and then in the overnight session, you can see they came right to it on the way up. And this is not cherry picking anything. This is exactly what's happened here just in the last few hours in the overnight session. You know, so let's look at what happened yesterday. I think I circled it on the 3-minute chart here. Let's go back to yesterday's market and take a look at it. This is how yesterday played out. Remember, we were doing our pre-market, and this is what we saw before the market opened. It was chopping in here. It held that major roadmap level, got the pullback, and then just before the market opened, they tested into here. Now, I'm not saying that you bought here and you made money. You did on the first test. Again, how much did it really push through on that first test? Maybe a point in this market that's going 50 points per minute. So it held, and you got your trade to the first roadmap level, right? From 54.20 to 54.32, 12 points with 1 point of risk. And then it came down, and here is where you would have got stopped out if you had some runners for a much bigger trade. But then notice it basically generally held, gave us a bullish 3-minute signal. And then as we came into the open yesterday, the high of the day was the next roadmap level up top. All right, so again, I'm not just going back, finding the perfect scenario for you guys and saying, look, this works. I'm just showing you exactly what happened yesterday and in the overnight session as we come into the open here. So we come up, and on the way up there, we'll look at it on the 512 as well. But when the market opened yesterday, it came right to the first roadmap level and pulled back 10, 20 points. And then it came up to the next roadmap level and it pulled back right off of it. Right? And then it came back up through to do a peak above and fail. That's a typical pattern I teach. A beautiful tradable pattern. We're testing a roadmap level. We get the peak above the level with the bearish divergence and then the failure. It's called the peak above and fail. I forget what other people might call it. It's what I've called it for years. And then we have the other side of it, which is the peak below and bounce, which I don't know if we have an example of that. I don't think we have it right here. But very, very, very clear signal. So coming into the open after about, well, this is actually an hour through the open now. If you saw that signal at the roadmap level and looking like a very typical pattern, you then could have actually oriented yourself for that bearish side, right? So it fails off of there and then holds that next major roadmap level for the bounce. And then chops up, right? Not claiming they just held this roadmap level perfectly, but it chops up in here. And then we pull back, in the low of the day yesterday was the next roadmap level. So I share this stuff in many ways because I don't even believe it myself. If you watch some of the videos or most of the videos that I share on YouTube for the last year or two, it's like I come in the morning and I just go, what the? It's like I drew these levels on the chart after the market did this action. And I claim, look, I got the high, I got the low. It just blows me away. So this is how it looks on the 3-minute. This is like a nice concise view. High of the day, low of the day. They come down and fail and bounce right off that roadmap level for that biggest bounce of the day. And then once they get through 50% of the day before, it's a reason we have this daily power level indicator on the chart, it then becomes the major resistance all day. And what did I tell you we want to see the bears do yesterday? We want to see the bears hold below 50% of the day before so that our higher time frame daily signal, we literally said this as the market opened, will hold below that bearish candlestick. And if we could hold below 50% of the day before, which was that candlestick, we were expecting the market to sell lower. And here we are in the open, and we've sold lower. Took about the overnight, or it took the afternoon of yesterday and the overnight session to continue to follow through, but here we are, right? So we might be in the midst of now a deep pullback into the 50% again of this whole push. Doesn't mean we're guaranteed anything. It just means that the signs are there and it makes sense for that pullback, and we're getting it so far. So let's look at the 512 because there are some interesting little details, and then we'll talk about today. Although I told you that this morning we're still the market looks almost exactly the same, right? Except for the pullback. So let's go back to yesterday and let's pull up right here. So I circled all this stuff so I could put the picture in our chat so people could see very clearly where the rotations were on the short time frames. And you can see here out of the open, like I said, they pushed right to that first roadmap level. It was a bearish divergence, at least on the 512, right there. There's that pattern. We peak up into the roadmap level. There's the divergence on the 512 tick chart. And there's that big pullback out of the open, right? So first roadmap level held like a charm. They pull back. They go through the fast moving average, which is a clue. If they're not going to hold that and continue to bounce, most likely, if that doesn't hold, it's coming down here. Whether it's right here or around VWAP in the 200 or into that next roadmap level, we don't know. But if it can't hold the FMA, it's most likely coming down to one of those three places, right? And what happened? They held 50% of the day before there to the tick. I mean, we're talking a beautiful little peck right to it. And then we get that next bounce. So out of the open, first roadmap level, 50% of the day before. Or you could have traded the Hopal, Holy Orange Power level. Low of the morning was the Hopal. And then we got that bounce, right? And there's no roadmap levels in here. So once we get above 54, 59.5, we're targeting and expecting the market to come up to this next level. That's just the general idea of how we're trading this stuff. Well, that's this level here that I haven't talked about ever since we did that public broadcast yesterday. Because I noticed here, even though the major roadmap level is at 59.5, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on right there in the market on short time frames. Okay, so this is like a scalp level because if you look, it's a support and resistance on a shorter time frame. So this is the higher time frame major support and resistance area. This is a short time frame scalp level. See how many times we came right to it for these little rotations in here. Still went through it, and but it was on the short time frames a little scalpable level. So I put it on there. It's 5 points from the main level, and it's not like an official roadmap level on our news report, but that's that. And by the way, Patty and anyone else who is new, I think Patty might be the only one in here right now, but for the sake of the recording, we do give out a news report every morning. It's just not for the public. It's a private news report, and I didn't put it in there today, so let's put that in there. For the members here, we have our news report for the morning, 16th. And in that news report, it has all the levels, all the thoughts for the day. I'll just give you a sneak peek, and you can see what I mean by that. But we have, what planned news events. We want to know the time of the news event because we're going to get a spike in volatility. So you don't want to have a trade on right at 10 a.m. today or around when Powell speaks, right? We've got our major high time frame signals. We've got the levels for the day, and then we've got our insights for the day. So that is what goes out to the members every morning. And that's that. So little digression. But again, going back to the price action yesterday, on the sell-off, this is the stuff you cannot see on a 3-minute chart. On that sell-off, you can see, wait, where am I going here? I'm definitely not on the same day here. Give me a second. Zoom out here. So going back to yesterday, when they sold off, again, they hold that 200. I mean, they came back up and held that and then tested into it. There's actually bearish divergence, at least here on the 512, and I showed you guys on the 3-minute. When the market came back to test it, that was that peak above and fail. And then we get the rotation. They hold the 200 there. That's why this is the roadmap, right? Holds it, tries to break out from there, holds the FMA, fast moving average, comes down, holds the roadmap level, holds the back end of the 200, holds the roadmap level for a couple seconds there, bouncing, and then it comes down, and it actually holds the hopeful there for a little scalp, about 3, 4, 5 points, and then comes down, and then comes right to that next roadmap level for the bounce, right? And then when it bounces, it holds that first main roadmap level with the 200 and then comes back down, right? So you see how this is quite literally the roadmap for the S&P. This is exactly where the market goes, travels back and forth from. Now, if it's choppy, of course, you can't help chop. But if you really look at where all the chop is, where are the major little swing highs of the chops and the swing lows? It's pulling back to that 59.5 area and bouncing. And then when it gets below it, it's holding it to the downside. Right there, right here, right here. And then, like I said, it was messy as well, right? But overall, that was a very critical rotational area in the chart there. And then we sell off. It holds the back end of that level on the way down. And then once we get all the way through, by the way, there's the roadmap level for a 5-point bounce again. Gets below it, gets below the previous daily close, holds that, and then comes back up to 50% of the day before, right? And that's right where the 200 is. And that's a textbook trade setup. First tag of the 200 moving average in a downtrending market on the first tag of the crossover. So the crossover happened right there. The first time we tag it is right here. And there's the trade, and there's a huge divergence as it's testing into that area. So great short. And then again, we saw all this stuff on the 3-minute chart. So on the way down there, notice it holds the tag of the 200 and comes down. And this is why I like these levels, because when the levels hold, they hold. I know my risk is super limited from that swing. And then from there, we get the pullback. Now, if it doesn't work, I'm taking a small stop out. That's trading. But if it does work, I know that it's typically rotating here within a very limited, push. And then from there, you get the 2 rotations. So just some examples of yesterday in a tight, choppy market with low volume. We still are nailing the major swing highs and lows. And as we come into the open here, you can see that we sold off last night, gap down, by the way, and they bounced right off the roadmap level yesterday. So if you had a long here coming into the Globex session, you got yourself a 20-point bounce. Should have been done for the night. And then we peek through and we come down, and the next major bounce is here. All right, and here's kind of more short time frame levels that we have on the chart down here. Very much closer together. This is now almost less than a 10-point range. But you can see inside of it, this is why these 2 levels are right here. This is exactly why. It's holding right there. Gets above it, bounces off of it, gets below it, and then it bounces and chops inside of it, and then leaves. So this is a shorter time frame chop box. Okay, so it took me a long time to figure all this out and get the eye for it, but you can see just how incredible these levels are. And in the overnight session here, they bounced and held that, pulled back, and then came up in the high of the overnight session. Now, for all intents and purposes, is that major roadmap level. Now, this is the close of the day before, so of course they came up in the overnight and gave a kiss of the close of the day before, and now we're getting the pullback. And I was hoping we would get a little pop back up into this area a couple minutes ago, but only got a scalp to the VWAP. So that is kind of the review. We're about to open here. But like I said, this morning is exactly like yesterday. So everything I said yesterday applies to this morning. If we go up to the hourly chart here very quickly, and let me grab that. Did I delete it? I don't understand. But when you go to the hourly chart coming into this morning, we are expecting this pullback right now, like we said yesterday, same expectation. So we want to obviously see the bears go ahead and continue to sell off here. But if the bulls come back up and they can get up through this overnight swing by the previous daily close, that area I just talked about, get up through 50% of yesterday at 54.49, well, now we are starting to look for the retest of yesterday's high. And of course, on the way up, we have levels that could hold the bulls down, right? We have mostly 54, 59 half. We have mostly 54.81 up into the high of yesterday. And then we're up into the next major swing at 55.19. So that would be the ideal case for the bulls. Just understand that each roadmap level above us could be right where the market comes into and fails out for a continuation back down to the downside. So that is it, my friends. I hope you have a great morning, and I will be back tomorrow. Again, I don't plan to be doing this publicly every morning now, but we'll see, especially Patty, if you're here and you're really interested and you want to see a little more, I'll try to get this out to you. But that's it, my friends. I will see you tomorrow for my members. And then for actually what we're dealing with here is Friday. So on Friday, I will then see you again, Patty. So have a great day, guys, and I will see you then.